Hey everyone, welcome back to Extra Rise English Podcast, the show that helps you level up your English one real conversation at a time. I am Mia.
And I am Leo. So glad you're here.
Okay, so today's episode is about a moment I think almost every person listening to this has experienced at some point in a work meeting. You are sitting there, someone is talking. Could be your manager, could be a client, could be a colleague from another country. And at some point, you realize you have no idea what they just said. Maybe they used a word you did not know. Maybe they spoke too fast. Maybe there was some office jargon or acronym that everyone else in the room seemed to understand.
And everyone around you is nodding like everything is completely clear.
Nodding, confidently. And you are sitting there thinking, should I nod too? Should I ask? What do I even say? And most of the time, what happens is nothing. You nod. You write it down. You hope you can figure it out later.
And sometimes you can, and sometimes you make a decision based on something you did not fully understand. And that's where real problems start.
Right. Today, we are fixing that because asking for clarification in a meeting is a skill. There are good ways to do it, and there are ways that make you feel embarrassed or like you interrupted at the wrong moment. And once you know the good ways, you will never have to fake nod in a meeting again. This is segment 1, Why We Do Not Ask. Leo, I want to start with honesty because I think most people listening right now know they should ask when they do not understand. They know it, but they still don't do it. Why?
There are two big reasons, and they're both rooted in something very specific to how a lot of us were taught. Not just English, but how to behave in professional or formal settings. The first reason is the fear of looking stupid. In a lot of Asian professional and academic environments, not knowing something is associated with incompetence. If you ask a question, it means you weren't paying attention, or you aren't smart enough to keep up, or you should have known this already. That association runs very deep.
Yes, and when you're already in a second language, that fear doubles because now it's not just, I don't know this thing, it's, I don't know this thing and my English isn't perfect, and everyone can tell. It feels like every gap is visible.
Exactly. So the instinct is to hide the gap rather than address it. And the second reason is not knowing how to ask in a way that feels professional. A lot of people do know that asking for clarification is acceptable in theory, but they don't know what to actually say. So even when they overcome the fear, they get stuck on the words.
Right, like the gap is not confidence, it's vocabulary. You want to ask, but you don't have the sentence.
And that's exactly what today fixes. But before we get to the phrases, I want to reframe the fear. Because I think a lot of people believe that asking for clarification makes them look less capable. And the research on this and just common professional experience says the opposite is true.
What do you mean?
Think about the best professionals you have encountered, the most competent, most respected people in the room. Are they the ones who nod at everything and never ask questions? Or are they the ones who ask precise, well-timed questions that cut right to the heart of the issue?
Oh, it's always the second one. The people who ask the questions that everyone else was also thinking but didn't say.
Exactly. Asking a good clarifying question in a meeting is a signal of engagement. It tells the room that you are paying close attention, that you care about understanding things correctly before you act, that you aren't going to nod and then do the wrong thing later. In most professional environments, that's not a weakness. That's the behavior of someone who takes their work seriously.
Right, the person who fakes understanding and then makes a mistake based on bad information. That's the person who looks bad, not the person who asked a clear question up front.
Precisely. And one more thing, when you ask for clarification, you almost always give permission to other people in the room who also didn't understand. There's nearly always someone else sitting there doing the same fake nod. And when you ask the question, you can see it on their faces. The relief, the quiet thank you. You spoke for everyone.
I love that. You're not showing your gap. You're doing the room a service. Okay, let's get into the actual language. This is segment 2, What to Say When You Don't Understand.
There are 3 situations where you might need to ask for clarification in a meeting, and each one has its own set of phrases. Situation 1. You missed what someone said entirely. Maybe they spoke too fast. Maybe there was background noise. Maybe you were processing the previous thing they said and missed the next part. You need them to repeat it.
Okay, and what do most people say in this situation?
A lot of people say, sorry, what? Or just what? Both of those work in very casual conversation, but in a professional meeting, they sound abrupt, like you're not fully present. The professional version is, sorry, could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught that. Or, could you repeat that last part? I want to be sure I have it right. Both of these phrases do something the bare what doesn't do. They give a reason for asking. You want to make sure you caught it. You want to be sure you have it right. That reason transforms the ask from a gap into a sign of care.
Right. There's a huge difference between what and could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught that. One sounds like you weren't listening. The other sounds like you were listening so carefully that you want to make absolutely sure you got it right.
Exactly. Same gap, completely different impression. Situation 2. You heard what they said, but you didn't understand what they meant. Maybe they used a term or acronym you're not familiar with. Maybe their point was unclear. Maybe they referenced something you don't have the context for. This is slightly different from the first situation because you don't need them to repeat it, you need them to explain it.
And this one feels scarier to me because with the first situation, you can blame the speed or the audio. But with this one, you have to admit, I heard you, I just don't know what that means.
Right, and that's where most people freeze. But here's the phrase that makes it professional and even sharp sounding. Could you walk me through what you mean by that? I want to make sure I'm following correctly. Or, just to clarify, are you saying that the timeline is fixed or that we have flexibility? Or, even simpler, could you say a bit more about that? I want to fully understand before we move forward.
I love that last one especially. I want to fully understand before we move forward. That phrase reframes the ask completely. It's not, I don't understand, it's, I care about understanding this well enough to do something useful with it.
And every good manager in the world wants to hear that from someone on their team. It's exactly the mindset they're trying to build.
Situation 3. You understood the general point, but you're not sure what it means for you specifically. Someone made a decision in the meeting, a new process was announced, and you're not sure whether it applies to your project, your team, your deadline. This one is actually the most common source of silent confusion in meetings.
Because the thing was said to the whole room, but you don't know if it applies to your situation.
Exactly. And the phrase for this is, sorry, just to confirm, does that apply to the current project as well? Or, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly from my side. Does this mean that the timeline changes for us too? Or the simplest version, I just want to double check. Does this affect the work we discussed earlier?
I want to double check. I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Those are such clean phrases. They don't say, I'm confused. They say, I'm being careful.
Which is exactly the impression you want to leave. Not confused, careful. Not lost, precise. Those are very different reputations, and both come from the same question, just framed differently. Okay, this is the moment, right here. This reframe from I'm confused to I'm being careful is the mindset shift that changes everything about how you show up in meetings. And if that just landed for you the way it landed for me when I first really understood it, this is exactly what we bring you every week on Extra Rise. Subscribe right now so you never miss a conversation like this one. Not for us, for the version of you that walks into the next meeting knowing exactly what to say.
3 phrases to carry into your next meeting. Could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught that correctly. Could you walk me through what you mean by that? I just want to double check. Does this apply to our side as well? Say those out loud right now. Pause, say them.
All right, segment 3, the drill. 3 meeting scenarios. All real, all out loud. Leo, ready?
Ready.
Scenario 1. You are in a video call with your team and your manager. She is explaining a new process for submitting project updates. She speaks fast and uses a phrase you have not heard before. She says something about end-of-day EOD submissions tied to the sprint cycle. You are not sure exactly what she said or what EOD means. What do you do?
I would wait for a natural pause, usually when the manager takes a breath or finishes a sentence. And then I would say, sorry, could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught the submission process correctly. And then once she repeated it, if I still did not understand EOD, I would say, just to clarify, when you say EOD, are you referring to the end of the business day in our time zone or the company's headquarters time zone? Because we're in different regions.
That second question is so precise and so professional. He did not just say, "I do not know what EOD means." He immediately turned the clarification into a relevant, useful question about something the whole team probably needed clarity on anyway. He made the confusion productive.
Right, and when you phrase it that way, are you referring to our time zone or headquarters? The manager doesn't see confusion. She sees someone thinking through the practical implications, which is exactly what she needs her team to be doing.
Say that out loud. Sorry, could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught the submission process correctly. Pause and say it now. Scenario 2. You are in a meeting and a senior colleague is presenting a proposal. He uses the phrase value-added deliverables a few times. You think you have a general sense of what he means, but you're not completely sure, and the conversation is moving toward a decision that seems to involve your team. What do you do?
I would wait until there's a pause or a moment where he invites questions, which most presenters do, and I would say, could you walk me through what you mean by value-added deliverables in this context? I want to make sure I understand what that looks like practically for our team before we move forward. And if there's no natural pause, I would say at the end of the presentation, before we finalize anything, could you say a bit more about the value-added deliverables piece? I want to make sure I'm aligned on what that means for our workload.
2 versions, one for when there's a pause, one for when there's not. I love that. And that phrase, before we finalize anything, is so smart. It signals that you're responsible, that you don't want to commit to something without understanding it. That's not confusion, that's due diligence.
And most experienced professionals will respect that instinct completely. They'd rather you ask now than deliver the wrong thing in 2 weeks.
Say it out loud. Could you walk me through what you mean by that? I want to make sure I understand before we move forward. Pause and say it now. Last one, Scenario 3. Your manager just announced in a team meeting that all project timelines are being pushed back by 1 week due to a change in the product roadmap. There are 6 different projects being discussed. You're responsible for one of them, and you're not sure if this 1-week extension applies to yours or only to certain projects. What do you do?
I would say, just to confirm, does the 1-week extension apply to all active projects or only to the ones tied to the new roadmap? I want to make sure I update my team's planning correctly. And if the answer is unclear or the manager says she will follow up, I would say, no problem at all. I just want to double check before I communicate anything to my team so I don't give them the wrong information.
That last line is brilliant. I don't want to give my team the wrong information. You're not asking for yourself, you're asking because you care about your team having accurate information. That reframe turns the question into an act of leadership.
And it's completely true. That's always the real reason to clarify in a meeting. Not because you're confused, but because you want to act on correct information. The confusion is just the trigger. The purpose is accuracy.
Say it out loud. Just to confirm, does this apply to all active projects? I want to make sure I have this right. Pause and say it now.
Go back and say all 3 out loud. The repeat request, the walk me through it, the just to confirm. Say them all until they feel like something you would actually say in a real meeting next week, because that's the whole point.
All right, wrapping up. Here's your one thing from today. The next time you do not understand something in a meeting, don't nod. Ask. Use the phrases. Could you say that again? I want to make sure I caught that correctly. Could you walk me through what you mean by that? Just to confirm, does this apply to our side as well? 3 phrases for 3 situations. All of them professional, all of them usable tomorrow.
And remember the reframe. You're not asking because you're confused, you're asking because you're careful. You're not showing a gap, you're doing the room a service. That mindset shift changes everything. How you feel before you ask, how you sound when you ask, and how the room hears you after.
Your assignment for this week. In the next meeting you attend, use at least 1 clarifying phrase. Any of the 3. Even if you fully understand everything, use one just to practice. And then come to the comments and tell us what happened. Did it feel different than you expected? Did anyone respond in a way that surprised you? We read every single comment.
We genuinely do.
And if this episode gave you a phrase you've been missing, share it with one person who's also sitting in meetings and fake nodding their way through them. Not because it helps us, because that person is out there right now choosing silence when they could be choosing clarity. Be the one who sends it to them.
And if you want more of this every single week, subscribe. We'll be here.
All right. Thank you so much for being here on Extra Rise English Podcast. And remember,
Because one serving of English is never enough.
see you in the next episode.